Welcome to Brevard News, your home for real news in Brevard County. Be sure to like, share, and subscribe to our podcast. My name is Stel Bailey, and I'm filling in for Kevin Jeffrey. I'm here with my co-host, Katie Delaney, candidate for District 1, Brevard County Commission. And we have our guest, John Hearton, United States Rep for Florida 8th Congressional District, and Mike Hammer, the candidate for City of Palm Bay City Council, Seat 2. This week's topics, we are going to go over the recent events surrounding the attempted assassination of former President Donald Trump, the Firey Brevard County meeting, a small win for the people of Titusville, and engaging conversations with our special guests running for office. So we're going to get started with the July 9th County Commission meeting. We started off with a rally. And how would you describe the general atmosphere at the rally, and what did you take away from it, Katie?
So it was pretty incredible. We had probably over 200 people show up to support the firefighters in Brevard County. And the people who showed up for the rally, everybody was excited to finally be able to speak out on this issue. There were people who were outraged because of what our firefighters are dealing with right now. And the biggest thing I took away from it was what we can do when we come together as a community. So that was pretty incredible.
And then we headed into the actual Brevard County Commission meeting at 5 p.m. after that rally took place. There were numerous media outlets that covered that rally. Inside that meeting, there were hundreds of firefighters, their supporters, their family members that were there who showed up in force. Why do you think so many people showed up, and what was your overall observation of the meeting, John?
Well, first of all, our firefighters are one of the most important things that we have as our first responders. And quite frankly, they are extremely underpaid, barely making more than minimum wage. And the attrition rate is ridiculous here in Brevard. And we need to pay more attention in making sure that our firefighters are not only well trained, because we train them and then they wind up going elsewhere for new jobs. So we need to do what we can to give them adequate salary, a livable wage, so that we can go ahead and make sure that the citizens of Brevard County are protected.
And Mike, what are your thoughts and takeaways from that meeting?
I thought the firefighters are extremely underpaid, and it's nothing new. They've never been paid well. I actually went to fire school, got my Fire Science 1, Fire Science 2, got my EMT, and I was actually going to work for Brevard County, and I got a better job after the hurricanes. They just didn't pay enough, and after the hurricanes, we went to Katrina, went to Miami, and when I come back, I just took a job at Palm Bay because at that time, Harbor City Ambulance was going down, so they had to do, not fire, but they had to do medical as well. And I still didn't see a lot of bump in pay when that changed. So it's nothing new, but I'm glad people are standing up for them.
Yeah, so in the meeting, all the firefighters stayed until the very end during public comment, where they went up and they shared their grievances with the government, with the county commissioners. And there were a lot of observations in those comments where they came forward and they shared some really heartbreaking stories about the challenges that they are facing because of their low wages. And one of the speakers was you, Katie, and you pretty much ended the entire night with a big bang. Do you want to tell us from your perspective how that went?
Sure. So I came forward with a prepared speech. And just after listening to all the firefighters and feeling the vibe in the room, I just really felt like I needed to speak from the heart. And it was very frustrating because you saw Frank Abate, the county manager, sitting back, not paying attention, not not even looking at the people while they were speaking. You saw Tobiah and Rita Pritchett, again, doing the same thing, not looking at the people, not paying attention, even snickering and laughing and talking to each other while people were giving their public comments. And finally, I just felt like I had to stand up for the firefighters at that point. And I called out Frank Abate because he couldn't even look at these people in the face. And he's been the one who's been there, for all these years. He is the one who is in charge of putting the budget together.
And you're talking about county manager,
right.
Frank Abate. He's the county manager
right.
of the county. And one of the things that did get brought forward during the public comment was his increases in pay. He received over $52,000 in increases in 2022. And County Attorney Richardson received over $86,000 in 2022. That's a 49% pay increase to rejoin the county's employment. Neither have received performance evaluations. And then today, it was just released after numerous public record requests that the county is currently spending on a third-party attorney to do the labor negotiations that were previously done in-house, $320 hourly rate.
Right. Yeah, we did some public record requests to get those invoices, and we still haven't gotten the invoices yet, but we did get, the county sent us this chart that they made up themselves of all the money that's been paid out. And it's very frustrating. I believe it's something around $16,000, $17,000. And, this is the thing that I was talking about. They can find all this money for all their pet projects. They can find money for the things that they want to spend the money on. Yet we can't find the money to give our firefighters higher wages.
So what's one way that people can support the firefighters in the upcoming week? Isn't there a meeting? It's on
the 19th.
Friday the 19th. They're having a rally at 8:30 a.m. So if you guys can come, bring your signs, come support the firefighters. And then after the rally at 9:30 a.m., they will start their negotiation session. And that will be at 1040 Florida Ave, South Rockledge, Florida. Any other closing comments on the firefighter meeting that you observed, like afterwards?
I am just hopeful that the county does the right thing and comes to this negotiation with an actual offer. I'm not saying they can fix it all in one meeting, but at least show some good faith that they're going to start doing better.
So we're going to move on. The same night that the firefighters were fighting their battle in a county commission, the city of Titusville gave the citizens a slim little win. They finally made their agenda packet available online, but this took 27 months after they were asked to do so. And so they initially blamed the ADA compliance for not doing so, but other cities in Brevard County have been able to do it with no issue, publishing their agenda packets and not using the ADA excuse. So this past Tuesday, residents were able to get that small win. Could negative press have influenced this decision on Tuesday, and what can the city do to further transparency?
So I asked the last time I was at the Titusville City Council, I asked them where they were at with this, because a citizen brought this forward, like you said, over 2 years ago. And then we recently brought it forward about 6 months ago, and nothing, I hadn't seen any movement. So I looked at the council and I said, where are we on this? You have a city manager who makes $220,000 a year, and we can't even have our agenda packets online. And so thankfully that kind of pushed them to publish those that agenda online. But the reason why it's a small win is because they put the entire thing as a PDF, basically, all 500, 600, even sometimes 1,000 pages, all on one document. So, I mean, that's very hard to digest. The way that the county and most cities, the way that they do it is they break it up by agenda item so that you can click on the thing that you want.
Let's go to Mike. How does Palm Bay do it?
Palm Bay actually has, as of, I want to say, the last 6 months, they've changed it to where you can bring it up. It's a whole HTML that you can see everything.
And does Palm Bay record most of their meetings and put it online?
Every bit of it, and they're actually switching it, or not switching it, but they're adding an actual YouTube page to where you can view all of the council meetings on YouTube. And if you go to their website, palmbayflorida.org/watch, it'll let you see each meeting for not only the city council, but for each one of the boards. It actually gives you a link to where you can download it as well.
So there's this Brevard County Citizens Audit Group. It's called Brevard Cares Citizens Coalition, and they work on comparing what all the cities are doing in Brevard County to see how they can better each city in their transparency process. John, what are your thoughts on, those cities being as transparent as possible?
I think they need to be transparent, no question. In fact, I think we need transparency all up and down our political environment. We have a situation at the federal level where people talk about transparency, but they don't really do anything. They'll be quick to blame somebody else who won't vote accordingly, and they're telling you, but you can't necessarily do anything about it. You don't vote for them, you don't vote against them because they're not even in your district, but you can count on this person not to vote appropriately. What does that do? It doesn't do much of anything. So I'm more of the type that is willing to go ahead and do even a mailer campaign to their constituents and educate their constituents to make sure that we get the right people in office and that we're doing the right thing by the people. So getting rid of the special interest and focusing on the people's interest.
Oh, yeah. I know that there's been quite a few candidates this election that have been really focused on citizen engagement. So we want to move on to talking to you a little bit more about your run, John. And so let's ask, why did you decide to run?
So everybody thought I was crazy going up against Bill Posey, and said, he's 16-year congressman, well loved and so forth. And to be honest with you, he was a nice guy, very generous with his time. I sat there and met with him in January 2023, and I had a good conversation with him. At that point in time, I wasn't decided to run. In fact, I didn't file until April. I was on my way to go out and meet my new grandson in Okinawa, Japan. My son's a Marine, and so I wanted to get a chance to go out and see the new little guy. And on the way, stop by the Philippines. My wife and I are avid scuba divers. In fact, candidly, that's what we were planning on doing, is retiring and being the happiest homeless people we could be, and just go around the world and scuba dive. But things work out for a different reason, I guess. And so it was a bit of a push. It is definitely a calling. Originally, I was sitting there thinking, well, it's my kids and my grandkids, and we want to protect their freedoms for our future generations. And then I went on a few months after I filed in April, about October time frame. I woke up in the middle of the night and grabbed my phone and put in Ephesians 6:15-17 in there, not knowing what it meant. And in fact, if you'd have asked me the next day to name the books of the Bible, I probably would have forgotten Ephesians because it's only 6 pages long. Anyway, we got up the next morning and took a look at it, read the scripture, and thinking that I still had an out, because you go through that cycle of ups and downs when you're knowing that it's not the smartest thing in the world for me to run. I mean, it's a pay cut for me. I have to give up ownership in 2 different companies, and I've put in $150,000 of my own cash so far, into the campaign. So
Wow.
It doesn't seem like it makes a lot of sense to do, but to me, it was an investment in our future generations and trying to bring the country back to the people. So
if you win, you'll be in Washington, D.C.
part-time.
And so how could you help Brevard County residents from Washington, D.C.?
Okay. So there's a few things that I think that we need to address. One is helping at a federal level. And there's 5 bills that are already teed up on my website. Some things that put in better election integrity, such as the if you can't vote, you can't donate bill. That's my short title of that, which essentially says that we're not going to have PAC funding, these super PACs funding these campaigns. We're not going to have outside influence and foreign interest in lobbying and campaigning. We're going to have it based on what the people do and what the people say and how much they're willing to go ahead and help support you getting the job. It takes down some of the barriers to entry that might otherwise be there, and provides an equal opportunity for folks that, quite frankly, should be running. There's a number of people, anybody whose ego is that big, that thinks that there's not somebody else that could do as good of a job there, shouldn't be there in the first place.
The next thing that I want to ask you about, there was in the Floridian, they alleged that there was an arrest and possession of altered forged operator's license in Virginia. Do you want to address any of those allegations?
Sure, I actually thought it was quite comical. It took me back a number of years, as a matter of fact, to the, 42, 43 years. Took me back to there. 16 or 17, I had modified my driver's license because you could drink at the age of 18 then. And so it was basically a fake ID. Now, mind you, I was never arrested. I was cited, I had a ticket, and I drove away from there. So never arrested, never given any Miranda rights or anything like that because there was no necessity for it. On top of that, I've had a top secret clearance for more than 30 years. ESSCI, a current top secret clearance. Okay? And the federal government has trusted me with that for many, many years. So to say that this was a major issue or something that was anything to talk about, I found laughable.
Katie, have you seen any of these kinds of tactics used in campaigns?
Pretty regularly, actually. It's last week we talked about some of the stuff that people have been saying about me, and it's just I wish that people could focus on what they're doing and why they're the best for the job or why they think they're the best for the job rather than trying to tear everybody else down. Now, if there's something truthful and like they have a voting record that you can point to and say X, Y, and Z, they did these things and this is why it negatively affects the community, that's one thing. But to go back 40 something years in somebody's history to when they were a child and make up something, I mean, that's silly to me.
So in closing, please tell our viewers why you are the best candidate to go to Washington, D.C. for us.
First of all, I'm a businessman. I've never been a lobbyist. I've never been a career politician. I'm not hampered by all the ownership that special interest has in many of our electorate, quite frankly. I can't be bought. I've been very successful with my businesses. I've been around two companies that were, one that was had a problem back in the day when the dot bomb and 9/11 and anthrax through the Postal Service was there, that we had to kind of force some investors to the table and make sure that they were taken care of, and turn that company from 2003 to 2007 to one of the top 10 information assurance companies in the country. And along the ranks of Booz Allen Hamilton, Northrop Grumman, Lockheed Martin, those kinds of companies were also in that top 10. So this is a success story. Obviously, they would like to try and make it sound like it was a bad thing. And so actually that same company in 2009, we had sold it to a group called Secure Mission Solutions, and I stayed on as their chief technologist until 2014 when we sold it for $125 million to Parsons.
Let me ask you one more question. Are you going to advocate for our Indian River Lagoon?
I'm going to more than advocate for it. So one of the problems that exists right now with our Indian River Lagoon is we do a ton of work on studies, but we don't have much action. Even the townships like Satellite Beach and so forth, they talk about putting in some devices to help bubble and help create more life there in our lagoons, but we sign up for them and we never see them. So that's a major problem. So I've talked to a number of folks about our lagoon. I'm part of the, talked to some of the Sorrel folks as well as Dwayne DeFries, who's probably one of the most experts out there regarding our lagoons, and trying to come up with the appropriate solution for that. My quick hip shot was basically to put in another port, and one of the reasons why I was thinking that is because we had the problems escalated after we put the port in up here in the Cape, and when they put the locks in and so forth, there was no circulation in the water. There was no real movement in a lot of ways in the water, and I'll get to the insurance pieces of this, but I think because I think it could help
Right.
the insurance as well. The locks prevented the flow of nutrients, prevented the flow of salinity and so forth into our lagoons. And down in Sebastian Inlet, for example, you don't have that problem. You have the grasses growing, you have a lot of life and so forth, and you don't have some of the other things that are there. Now, don't get me wrong, there's also issues with regards to some of the waste that's been done and some of the building that's been done with some of the bridges and so forth. But I think we need to make a decision on what the solution is and act on it. And I'm a person of action. I'm not a person of studies.
And it seems like you've been thinking about it, and
I definitely
so
have been.
that's
It's been
great.
one of my top two issues for locally here in District 8.
Sounds so good. So we're going to move on to Mike Hammer, who's running in Palm Bay. So let's start off. Why did you decide to run for Palm Bay?
So originally, my family is one of the founding families of Palm Bay and Melbourne. So Palm Bay has always had a strong place in my heart. We've always been part of the community. My grandfather had the key to the city at one time. My grandmother worked for Palm Bay for 30 years. My father worked for Palm Bay for 30 plus years, and I worked for Palm Bay for 15 years till I found corruption on a major scale, and I was
And what kind of corruption? Could you give us some examples of that?
there
You can
was
jump in anytime, too.
there was revenue that wasn't being brought in. There was a lot of ethics things that weren't going correctly. A lot of fuel was being used that wasn't being tracked. Stuff that would end up if an audit came out, everybody involved would be in trouble. And I've always been the kind of person to do the right thing. So I went forward and I asked management as well as higher up than that if they would address it, because I don't want it to come back down and me be part of it. I had knowledge of it, and they failed to. So I let them know I was going to be quitting my job, and if they weren't going to fix it, I was going to fix it from the outside. So on January 1st of 2020, I left my job at the City of Palm Bay, and I started addressing these issues, and I would say 90% of it's been resolved. There's still some enablers there that let it all happen, but a lot of the issues that have came around that are still very, very, very present.
So would you say you were an advocate before you decided to run? You were already civically engaged with the city?
I was civically engaged with the city when I started working at the City of Palm
Wow.
Bay. I actually worked in the community. I did a lot of outreach with Palm Bay is really diverse, and we got an influx of Haitian Americans that came into Palm Bay. So I actually took that to heart, and I worked with Haitians in the community to. We worked on getting a Roku station. We worked on music. We worked on a lot of different things to get Haitians employment and get them into something they could enjoy here in America, and it actually turned out really cool.
Wow. So what are the two biggest issues you believe Palm Bay is facing?
Well, I'd say our biggest issue right now is we are being super developed. And what's crazy is there is no stopping these developers. They're coming in, they're doing whatever they want with no pushback. As of right now, we have developers that in the last election, there was a developer that was actually coming in trying to bribe our city council members. And he actually got arrested for it. The FBI did a whole sting and everything else. And as of right now, we still have developers from Miami that are coming up and donating to candidates that they need their votes.
And how do people look at those candidate reports?
They are displayed online. A lot of times there's a really nice guy, Tom Gom. He runs the Palm Bayer, and every single time the reports come out, he shares them on his page. So it's really easy. It's really, really easy to see that. One of the other huge things that is coming around is the compound, as well as public safety. Public safety is huge for me. We are missing 29 officers that we can't fill positions for, and a lot of these things are because of our impact fees. Our impact fees are extremely low for police and fire, and I think they need to be addressed. And one of the things with our fire department in Palm Bay is they do get paid pretty well there, but one of the things that they lack is the equipment, and we actually lack the people to be there. As of right now, Brevard County has a fire fund that gets donated to. Palm Bay doesn't. And I've always said with police and fire, it's like we're in a race. And as of right now, they're comparing us with Melbourne and Brevard County, where they've been ahead for so long. So if we try to match what Brevard County and Melbourne are doing, we're never going to catch up. We're always going to stay that far behind them. There's a lot of catching up to do, especially with impact fees. I think the impact fees are going to slow a little bit of the development down. We are extremely overwhelmed with high density multifamily. It's not really the community Palm Bay is, but it's cheap. So that's a lot of the reason why these people want to come here.
So can you back up to the compound for a minute? What exactly, so we've heard a little bit about it up here in North Brevard, and we think of it maybe as our 5A where we go out mudding and stuff like that. What is the compound? Why is this so controversial?
It's like 5A. There's a lot of places for people to go and ride, and I've always been out there, and as a kid we used to ride four-wheelers and everything else. People go out there and drift, and I would say 95% of the people out there are just out there to have a good time and be safe. I mean, there's actually a lot of those people that actually go out there and they'll clean up. They have cleanups, just the people, all the recreational riders. But there are people that go out there for nonsense and for things that aren't good. And as of right now, I'm working on bringing a BMX track through BMX of USA. That's in the works to come out there, and they're estimating it's going to bring about $2.6 million annually for revenue to Palm Bay. So that's huge, and I'm working with another drone company to actually come in and do that. So,
well, that's incredible. So to wrap it up, what gets you the most excited about the city's future?
the potential. The city has so much potential to become self-sustaining because we're so large. We're only 45% built out. And with that, we have nothing to do in Palm Bay. There's no entertainment. There's nothing for Palm Bay residents to spend their money within Palm Bay. So we're pretty much an open book to bring any kind of new business, any kind of entertainment, anything. We have all the potential in the world for growth. We just need to harness it in and do it smart, because we can't keep on building car washes, storage units, Dollar Generals. We need places that actually supply larger salary jobs. And I think there's a lot of potential in that.
Okay, well, thank you for sharing, both of you. We're going to move on to the last part of this podcast, and we're going to talk about how former President Donald Trump was the target of an assassination attempt on Saturday at a Pennsylvania rally. The attack was the most serious attempt to assassinate a president or presidential candidate since Ronald Reagan was shot in 1981. At least one person killed, 2 attendees hurt, and the alleged shooter dead. What message do you have after watching what unfolded yesterday? Katie?
To say I was shocked was an understatement. I'm only 33 years old, so I have never really felt something like this outside of probably 9/11. Just the idea that somebody would do something like that and to be frank, I would feel this way if President Biden was the one who was shot. It just completely crosses a line. And I thank God that he's alive, and I'm so sorry and devastated for the family that lost their family member. And this should have never happened. And I hope that the Secret Service and the police, I hope that they that they ramp up security and make sure something like this can't happen again, because we are We are not at November yet, and there's going to be a lot more rallies, and we need to make sure that our people are protected, not only the candidates, but the people that come to support those candidates. So I'm glad that they got President Trump out of there safe, and I'm so glad that he's alive. But not everybody got to leave that day, and that's horrible.
Nice. John?
I'm thankful that President Trump made it out okay without any major problems. I am devastated at the senseless loss of life that happened there and the two people that were injured. My prayers go out to the families and also to President Trump and his family, as I'm sure it's a shock to the system in trying to continue to move forward with his idea of making America great again. We don't need this kind of behavior. It should not be tolerated, and we need to do whatever we can to make sure it doesn't happen in the future.
Mike?
It is a sad time. It extremely is, and I have all the prayers in the world for the family that was involved in it, as well as everybody that was there. There's a lot of shock taking bullets. I also believe that we need to find out a little bit more of what happened. There needs to be some answers to a lot of things. I believe we're about an inch away from a civil war here. If something like that would have happened, and I think we need to take something like that really seriously and come together as a country. I think we're extremely divided, and I truly believe God had his hand in what happened, because it could have been a lot worse. And we wouldn't be here having this conversation today if it went the other way.
So I'm going to close out with my 2 cents. Solidarity is the glue that holds Americans together. Joining forces with others means that those on the front lines that fight against tyranny, oppression, and any form of abuse of power are never alone. Stay tuned for upcoming events.